All right, today we are diving into a really fascinating psychological quirk, and it's named after one of America's founding fathers. It's a completely counterintuitive strategy for getting people to like you. And believe it or not, it all kicks off with a simple request. So let's say you were trying to build a connection with someone, a new colleague, maybe a rival, or even just a new acquaintance. What's your go-to move? Do you offer to help them, maybe buy them a coffee? Well, what if I told you the best strategy was the exact opposite of that? Yep, you heard that right. Instead of doing something for them, you ask them to do something for you. It sounds totally backwards, I know, but this is the very core of a powerful phenomenon that we call the Ben Franklin effect. So what is this effect exactly, and how on earth does it work? Let's get into it and break down this very strange secret to building friendships. It really is as simple and as strange as it sounds. The act of doing a kindness for someone actually makes the doer, the person doing the favor, like the receiver more. It's like our brains work backwards to justify our own actions. Kind of weird, right? So to really understand where this idea came from, we've got to rewind the clock all the way back to the 18th century and look at a little story from Benjamin Franklin's own autobiography. Okay, so picture this. Franklin is serving in the Pennsylvania Assembly, and he has to deal with this one rival legislator who just does not like him. This guy was influential, and he made it really clear that he wasn't a fan of Franklin. So instead of trying to win him over with favors, Franklin hatched this different, much more subtle plan. And what's really amazing is just how simple this plan was. Franklin heard the guy had this super rare book. He didn't ask for some huge, burdensome favor. Nope. He just wrote a note asking if he could borrow it for a bit. The rival sent it over, and Franklin returned it a week later with a simple thank you note. And that was it. The very next time they met, the rival actually approached Franklin, which had never happened before, and was incredibly friendly. And from that point on, they ended up building this really strong friendship that lasted until the rival passed away. A single tiny favor completely flipped the script on their entire relationship. Franklin summed it all up with what he called an old maxim. Basically, he's saying that the person who has already helped you is actually more likely to help you again than someone you've helped. But why? Why does this work? Well, this isn't just a quirky historical anecdote. It's a window into how our brains try to make sense of our own behavior. So, let's dig into the psychology behind it. The real reason behind the Ben Franklin effect is this powerful psychological principle called cognitive dissonance. You can think of it as the mental discomfort, like static in your brain, that we feel when we hold two conflicting ideas at the same time, or when our actions just don't line up with our beliefs. So here's the crucial part. Your brain hates that feeling of conflict. When Franklin's rival lent him the book, his brain had a puzzle to solve. Wait a minute, why did I just do a favor for a guy I don't like? He can't go back in time and unlend the book, right? So the easiest way to get rid of that mental static is to change his attitude. His brain just rewrites the script to say, you know what, maybe Franklin isn't so bad. I must actually kind of like him. Now, Franklin observed this centuries ago, but has modern science actually backed him up? Oh, absolutely. Let's take a look at a really clever study. So, back in 1969, two researchers, Jecker and Landy, set up this experiment. They had students win some money in a competition. Then, they split them into 3 groups. For Group 1, the researcher personally asked them for the money back, saying he was running low on his own funds. For Group 2, a secretary asked for the money back on behalf of the department. And Group 3, well, they just got to keep the cash. The results were just wild. When they asked the students to rate how much they liked the researcher, Group 1, the ones who did him a direct personal favor, liked him the most. Get this, they even liked him more than the students who got to keep the money. The key here is that the favor has to be personal. The group that returned the money to some faceless department, they actually ended up liking him the least. Okay, so this isn't just some fun fact for history buffs or psychology nerds. This is a real tool you can actually see and use out in the real world. You see it in sales, where a smart salesperson might ask a client for their expert opinion instead of just pitching something. That builds a connection. In mentorship, when a mentor helps out a protege, it actually strengthens the mentor's own positive feelings, and it even applies to our pets. The act of doing nice things for our dogs, giving them treats, praising them, it reinforces our own affection for them. The legendary Dale Carnegie, in his classic book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, called this a subtle but effective form of flattery. Because when you ask for help, you're basically giving that person a compliment. You're showing them you respect their abilities, and you're telling them they have something of value. But, like a lot of powerful psychological forces, this one has a flip side. There's a darker, more dangerous opposite that works in the exact same way. Yeah, if doing someone a favor makes us like them more, then doing someone harm makes us dislike them more. Our brain uses that same cognitive dissonance trick to justify cruelty. Just look at this comparison. It's the exact same mental process, but it leads to a much, much darker conclusion. To resolve the inner conflict of hurting another person, the brain doesn't usually conclude, I was wrong. Instead, it concludes, that person must be bad. They must have deserved it. This explains so much about human conflict, doesn't it? It's how jailers can come to dehumanize inmates, or how soldiers in a war create nasty terms for their enemies. It's a mental loophole that makes it possible to continue harmful actions while still seeing yourself as a good person. It's really the engine behind feuds and these endless cycles of violence. So I think the big takeaway here is that our actions are incredibly powerful. They don't just affect the people around us, they actively shape our own attitudes and our own emotions. Every kindness we perform strengthens our own capacity for kindness, and every act of cruelty, well, it does the opposite, which leaves us with a pretty important question to think about, doesn't it?